Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me and all the stuff that we do at Hawk Blogger on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, anywhere you go. And thank you for all the 5-star reviews over on Apple Podcasts. I'll read a couple of them a little bit later, but it's really fun to start the day looking at those, and I appreciate all your support. Saturday's certainly one of the favorite days of the week. We get to hang out with my good pal Jeff Simmons at Real Jeff Simmons, and buddy, pal, it's on, man. We're like just about 24 hours away from this game. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It feels like a playoff week, and I haven't felt like this kind of juice and overload with content and like the shows you've had. I have a buddy who's a big time Bucks fan, and they're playing in Buffalo tomorrow, and he's going to the game with his daughter. And he called me this morning, scrambling because his daughter was kind of sick. It's getting a little cold. He's like, "You want to come to the Bills Bucks game tomorrow for free?" And I'm like, "Are you out of your mind?" He's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "This is the biggest Seahawks game in like 10 years. Like, I'm not missing the Seahawks game to sit and watch a." So it was funny to tell. It completely went over his head, and I'm so excited for this game. So I'm not driving 2 hours to Buffalo to miss this Seahawks game and watch on tape delay.
I mean, it is amazing that there's a lot of good games. I mean, the Broncos Chiefs is a good game. Obviously, the Eagles Lions is a good game. The Bills Bucks is, I think, a great game, right? And I've barely spent any time even thinking about those. I feel like all of those are secondary, tertiary, whatever-ary to this game tomorrow. Not just because I'm a Seahawks fan, but I mean, the Bills got their ass kicked by the Dolphins. The Bucks have lost a lot of the sheen from their start. I still think that they're going to be a team in the end to watch out for. The Lions lost to 9 at home. I mean, JJ McCarthy and the Eagles, I just haven't been that impressed by. They do keep winning. I'll give them that. But the Seahawks and Rams team, man, they haven't been behind in a game since week 6. It's like it's about as good of a football matchup as you can get during the regular season.
Yeah, like this feels like boxing. If you're a boxing fan, like in the 90s, this feels like a heavyweight fight, And some of the coverage nationally has kind of annoyed me. Just like, these teams are playing again in 4 or 5 weeks. And they're like, if this game decides who goes to the Super Bowl, and I'm like, I heard you going on a rant. Like, no, this is just the first round. I made a reference that, I don't know, I felt old making. I'm like, well, if you just ended Rocky 3 after Clubber Lang knocked out Rocky, like what would happen?
Right.
So this is the first matchup. This is not the game that decides who goes to the Super Bowl. But from a Seahawks fan, you haven't felt a game this important. I heard you ask on Real Hawk Talk, what was the biggest game? And I couldn't think. It might be the biggest one, maybe since they played like New England on like that Sunday night. What was that, 2016, where they were like avenging the Super Bowl game?
Yeah.
But that didn't really feel big. That team ended up doing nothing. But it's just there hasn't been a regular season game where the Seahawks have been a legitimate contender in almost 10 years.
Yeah. It does feel really, really different. And I agree with you. Like the coverage has been all over the place. I'm not going to out which sports radio I turned on, but I was like driving to the VMAC, and sometimes I'll just flip on sports radio instead of a podcast. And this is local sports radio, and they're talking about whether Eli Manning should be in the Hall of Fame. I'm like, why is a single second of airtime being spent on anything but this game this week? I mean, this is gold. I mean, if I could have done a show 24 hours a day and managed it, I would have, because I feel like this game merits it, man. It's so good. I should get some news out of the way at the jump. So before we get into our deeper in our conversation, injury situation for people that are not tracking it that closely. Mostly good news. We knew that Jalen Sundell wasn't going to play. We knew that Tory Horton probably wasn't going to play. Those are the only two. Ernest Jones will play in this game. He is a captain in this game. We do get Josh Jobe back for this game. So that's, I think, relatively speaking, pretty good news. For the Rams, there was some question about Kobe Turner, their defensive tackle, and he hadn't practiced much. He and Devontae Adams are both listed as questionable, but are expected to play unless there's some sort of setback. So Seahawks are not at full strength. Obviously, they don't have Julian Love, don't have Jaron Reed, don't have Jalen Sundell, Tory Horton, Eric Saubert. But getting back Ernest Jones, I think feels like a really big one, assuming that he is like ready to play. Like, I don't want 50% of Ernest Jones in this game.
No, and especially when we saw what Tyrese Knight could do as a blitzer. If Ernest Jones is hampered at all, we don't want to take away some of the effective, what worked to be pretty effective last week. But I think this is obviously going to be a huge deal to Ernest Jones. Like, this is a team that essentially discarded him. He played against them last year in the first game. I think that was a big deal for him. Going back to LA, I don't know how many other defensive starters even played in that game last year or even cared about that game at the end of the year. This has to feel like a huge deal to him. And so it's such an exciting matchup. And yeah, to have Ernest Jones out there, to have Cooper Kupp out there for this Rams game, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I get the feeling that this is going to be more of a statement revenge kind of game for Ernest Jones, chip on his shoulder game for Ernest Jones than Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp talked about this week how he kind of had a little bit of closure. He was able to get more information from the team about why they moved on. And he's a guy that seems like he tries to have the right, mindset about these things. I have to think, though, that there's part of him that really wants to give it back to that team.
Yeah, and when he first was asked about this, like when he left the Rams and when he signed with the Seahawks, it was still very sore for him. And he was not happy about it. He was pretty cold. Him and McVay weren't talking, and him and McVay were like inseparable. Like, those were like the same brain. And I'm sure, look, players a lot of the time don't know, like, they don't go on over the cap, I imagine, and see like, okay, this is getting pretty obvious. He must have been pretty shook by this. He helped build that franchise into what they are today. And him and Matt Stafford, they were like super tight. Like, they had amazing chemistry. He probably thought he was going to be there his entire career. He was the fabric of that team. And so they, out of nowhere, just said, we're going to try to trade him and then cut him. And just learning that through the media, we saw what happened with the Seahawks and Bobby Wagner, how that got a little ugly. I'm guessing they fumbled it a little bit, and I was surprised to hear him say this week that he's had that closure because it was so different than what he's talked about. And I know like a clip surfaced on like Andrew Whitworth's podcast in the summer of like all the Rams guys getting together at his old gym and sending him off, and they're all hugging him. And it was a pretty cool moment to see. But I imagine deep down he wants to stick it to them. Like if the Seahawks sucked this year and he went down and they were like 3-7 right now, and he would probably be really bitter at the Rams watching them be 7-2. But I think the fact that he landed on his feet, he's on a pretty good team in his home state, it's got to feel pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I sense some conflict in him, about it. Like, I think he really loves that team and that organization and the city and what he was able to do there. And so that's where I feel a little different. Like Ernest, the funny thing people forget, Ernest talked about how the Seahawks were his most hated rival before he came here. And that like when he got traded here, is like, it's going to take me a little bit of time just to kind of be a Seahawk. But now he has wrapped himself in being a Seahawk. He loves being here. He loves being part of this team. I think he is one of the heartbeats, if what are there, four chambers in a heart? He's one of those chambers. And he, I think he's going to be so excited for this game. And I hope he's healthy enough to really play his best, because I think can be a huge part of how this game turns out. I was thinking a little bit about the trade, the Tory Horton injury.
Yeah,
and
seriously.
Shaheed trade. How would we be feeling right now? Because we're going to find out later today that whether or not Tory Horton and Jalen Sundell go on IR, whether one of them does or neither of them. But let's say Tory Horton goes on IR. I mean, where would we be without the Rashid Shaheed trade?
Yeah, like at the time, a lot of people thought that was a luxury addition, and maybe they should have got a right guard, or maybe they should have got a linebacker. And I thought that was a fair opinion. It felt a little luxury, and they paid a pretty good price for it. But that was right after the Horton's best game too with Washington, where he had 2 touchdowns and he had that great down the field play. So they had to, I'm guessing they knew that he was a little banged up coming out of that game. They said this week he was really sore, but man, that's not a luxury anymore. That is a key move. And Cooper Kupp, they're going to have to manage him to get through the rest of the year. if you have Horton on IR and Kupp playing at less than 100%, that would not land. And then you're already down Bobo and Riq Young. That group would be battered.
Yeah.
And so Shaheed becomes a really important addition. And now they thought he'd be the number 2 receiver to begin with, but now could be a home run move by the end of the year.
Well, there's this trickle down thing, and these are the things that you and I care about that nobody else does. But if Tory Horton goes on IR, I think there's a very good chance that Ricky White III will get added to the 53. And if that happens, Jeff, then I'm looking back at I want to make sure I've got this right before I say it. So that will mean that everyone but Damian Martinez of the draft picks will be on this roster. That's crazy, because it's not like they had 3 picks. This was a 3, 6, 9. This is an 11-man draft. To have 10 of those players on your roster is insane, man, including 2 7th-round picks.
Yeah, and the 7th rounder stuff is the cherry on top. But I saw you put out a tweet, and I was thinking about it this week. But really, like, the story coming out of the draft was like, wow, the Seahawks crushed this draft. And then the year started, and it was a little quiet from the rookie class. Mm-hmm. But now the halfway point is called like the post-rookie bump. That's where you see a lot of the rookies start to take off. Now we're here, and we're seeing what Imanwari can be. I like, if you listen to any like good coverage of the game, the whole thing focused on his impact and what he's done in the last 2 weeks. And I thought what you said online the other day was perfect, where you were debating whether they should take Zabel or him to get both of them and still come out with Horton, Arroyo, some of the other guys they got. Oots. Yeah, Oots. That is an insane draft class. And if you look at like over the last 3 years or 4 years, but again, some of the takes we had coming out of that draft, and they've gotten nothing for Milroe. That could have been another pick. But you can't shot them. I love the idea of a developmental quarterback. They should always be doing that. That draft class, if John Schneider's not executive of the year, but this draft class was Sam Darnold, like you probably thought the Cal Raleigh Judge thing was a disgrace. If he's not executive of the year, I don't know what to do anymore.
I've got a little something cooking on that front. If folks enjoyed my article about the identity and the work that Mike McDonald did this offseason, I'm working on something that might be a little bit, not necessarily long. I know that was very long. All my articles are long, but I'm working on something on what Schneider's done the last few years. So that'll come out probably in a few weeks from now. Yeah, I think it's pretty crazy what's going on this offseason, and not just this offseason, the past few. And I'll say this, there's people that have been like, I don't know how YouTube or Instagram, like they show some of these reels that were made for our shows like from months ago. And there was like one about me hyping up Jalen Milroe, and people are dunking on me like this take hasn't really aged well. And I'm like, there's literally zero that's changed about my expectations for him. The fact that Sam Darnold is an MVP quarterback is awesome. That also is completely independent of whether I think Jalen Milroe has the potential to be a very good quarterback in the next few years. And Jeff, I think that there's going to be some trade value, even if he does not become your starter. I think he could end up returning more than a 3rd-round pick down the line. You look at the quarterbacks that are coming out. It's not like there's a lot of great ones. So I like that pick. And there's this Riley Mills thing. We don't know when Riley Mills is going to be back. We don't know what he's going to be like. But there's a lot of signs that he's going to be a good player. And I've been asking, because I'm like, Jaron Reed goes on IR. Maybe they're going to get Riley Mills back sooner. I don't think that's going to happen. But this John Schneider kind of talked about it like it was a historic night for this franchise after this day 2 of the draft. And then he kind of walked it back. I think he was right. I think this is going to end up going down as maybe the best draft in Seahawks history from top to bottom. You can argue about, Russell Wilson, Bobby Wagner draft, those kinds of things, but 10 players on your roster, like that's for a playoff, maybe a Super Bowl team. That's a rare feat.
Yeah. When I listened to like some of the, I don't know if you know, like, are familiar with like John Middlecoff, who is a former scout with Howie Roseman. He does a podcast with Coward every week, and he's really tied into like the scouting community in the league. And the thing that he's been talking about, just that's being talked about in that scouting community, is how good Schneider's last 3 to 4 drafts were. And you take this year and you just think of Eamon and Zabel, that's 2 first-round caliber players. That already alone is a great draft. And then you add Byron Murphy, JSN, like all the talent they've accumulated in that building. All of a sudden, Abe Lucas has had a big step forward. But you look at this draft alone, the top to bottom, it's like the 2010 draft with better picks they had Earl at the top, but with the second first-round pick. And they had Okung that year, and they're getting – that's the closest thing we might find to it. But
yeah, I think that's right. I think
to pull that draft with the 18th pick and not – but you think about it, they traded DK for Eamon Warry. How good does that look right now when you consider the money, consider the impact they're getting in Pittsburgh, where I think he's over 50 yards once in the last month? They essentially traded DK for the defensive version of him, and he's on a rookie contract.
Yeah, that was the funniest thing was during the combine when they'd flash up comps for the different players doing what they did, and they usually do it at players of the same position. But when Eamon Warry did his stuff, they flashed up DK Metcalf, and I was like, okay, so one of the most athletic players in the history of the sport is now a defensive version, and you're going to put him on Mike McDonald's defense, and it's fun. I see folks. There's still folks that have some skepticism about some of the things he's doing, and I just got to say, if you don't see what his value and the uniqueness of his value, Jeff, you and I have talked about blue chips so often. The reason you bet on athletic profiles like that, and it's not just the athletic profile, the fact that he was a good college player as well, is because if they hit, there's nobody else like them in the NFL. And I think the fact that the Seahawks went for the first 4 games of the season without having him available to them, maybe the first 5, I can't remember, seeing how central he is to the plan that they've had in place. Man, the job Mike McDonald's done has been pretty amazing. But let's get to more current times with this. So you and I, content hounds, listen to all the different previews and stuff. There was a few that stood out to me this week. I'm curious, which one stood out to you and why? Like, what did you hear? What did you read? What's kind of got your attention?
I read an article from Nate Tice of Yahoo Sports, who's very detail focused, and he doesn't do it in a way that's like arrogant and he really went into the matchup on Yahoo. I think it went out last night, and it was just a really good summation of what the Rams do well, what the Seahawks do well, and how they're going to counter each other. And I thought it was a really good read of how they're going to attack each other. It's going to be a close game. I think one of the things that's kind of gone away is like this matchup decides who the better team is. And like, it's the first battle, like they play again. But I thought he did a really just clear job of showing what both teams do well, how they counter. He talked about how Stafford passed out empty a lot in the second half of that game last year in week 9. And they had a little more success. And that's when they actually first start going with the heavy tight end look. I found that really interesting. And the Seahawks were still able to counter. But one of the things he talked about is just how much the Seahawks were able to pressure him in the first half of that game. And he showed how many times they were just throwing the ball into the ground. And the other thing he talked about was that Kyle Shanahan's offense had a lot of success with a couple different routes that the Seahawks run a lot of last week. And he said Kubiak's going to look at that film and see a couple things on in-breaking, I think it was in-breaking routes or out-breaking routes.
In-breaking routes.
In-breaking routes. And I found that really intriguing. And he said there's a couple things that Shanahan's done to keep their pass rush. And it's one of the things that always blown me away is even when they had Aaron Donald, Kyle was able to take him out of the game. And then when you'd watch him play the Seahawks, and it looked like the refrigerator Perry, like attacking the entire, like nothing. So Kubiak coming from the Shanahan tree, they're going to watch that film, and there's some areas to attack. It's going to be interesting how both sides of the ball attack each other. I thought that was really interesting on both sides.
Yeah, I did not get a chance to read the article. I did listen to the Football 301 pod preview with Nate Tice and Charles McDonald, and Nate certainly carried the load on that preview. But I thought Nate was really good there, and he talked about the in-breaking route stuff, talked about some of the condensed formation stuff as well, a few other things. I thought that Brett Coleman, and this is not just to pump the show, but Brett Coleman on when he came on with us on Thursday, his conversation about the specific types of coverage that the Seahawks play that takes away some of what the Rams really like. I thought that was an excellent ad. My favorite preview of the week, and I'll have to say, like, don't tell Mina, because obviously a fan of Mina. She's a friend of the show. It's the first time I've listened to any of Mina's stuff this year, but she and Ben Solak did a preview of this game. That was my favorite of the week. I thought they were excellent, and part of it was not just the words and the content, but how excited they were for this, the geeking out that was going on. And I thought they brought some really, really great stuff to that. Did you get a chance to listen to that one at all?
I did. And I definitely had issues with Ben's approach to the offseason. And I even said at the time, I don't think that's his strength. I thought ESPN actually used him incorrectly. Like, they had him ranking like the coaches and the offseason. I think when he gets into the details and when he puts out some of those videos, he is really sharp. And you can see how excited he gets. And I thought that stood out, because when him and Mina can kind of go back and forth, they're both kind of football geeks, and like they get so giddy about it. And obviously Mina knows the Seahawks and Rams better than anyone. So to have those two kind of brains working together, I thought that was really cool. And I thought that's what Solak does really, really well. When he can take like a very complicated situation and explain it very simply. And it's very hard to do that. Like, some of the people I hear try to explain the all-22 in the jargon, and even someone like me who knows football pretty well, they can lose me. I think he does it in a way, and you can see just his natural enthusiasm. That's the cool part about it. It's not just trying to create content. And that's what I haven't listened to a ton of Brett Coleman's stuff. Like, I listened to his season previews a lot and his draft stuff, but I was kind of blown away listening to him on your show, because again, he gets so into like the jargon. And that's the kind of thing where you could really lose someone. Like, when I started writing, one of the things my first boss told me is almost never use jargon. Most people have no idea what you're talking about. Make it simple. And I think that's what Ben does really well. But he did it in a way where I felt like he was teaching me stuff, and he was just excited. And like, you could just see how he was flowing, and it was clear, and like, I got what he was saying. Yeah, I was really impressed with him. I thought that was one of the best interviews you've done all season.
Oh, thanks, man. He was great.
I've started looking into him, and like, he's pretty connected with the league, and he gets some pretty. So good for him. I remember you had his co-host on, I think, around the offseason. I thought he was really good too. So I really like Baldy. Well, Baldy's my favorite. So Baldy might not have like the in-depth knowledge that like a Solak might have, but his connection to all the linemen and talking about Olu and Lane Johnson, just showing up at Lane Johnson's house, and he's so much fun. Like, when you have an interview and I don't want it to end, that's when I know it's a great interview. And I was just so sad when he had to leave.
I know. It was that was definitely a highlight. Having those two on in the same show was kind of crazy, and it just worked out that way. But yeah, I love the Baldy stuff too. His stuff on the line. And are you a puzzle guy, Jeff? Do you like puzzles?
No, my brain wasn't able to compute with them.
Yeah, I don't like puzzles either. My dad's a huge puzzle guy. You know, he'll do like the spilt milk all white thing. Like, I'm like, no,
it never worked for my brain. Yeah.
But the reason I bring it up is that one of the things that really does get me excited is the puzzle involved with football. Like, okay, you've got this player fitting here. How does this matchup work? Then how does this kind of go together, and where are their advantages? And that's what I like. One of the things that I love about this matchup, and why there were specific previews that like, okay, I see you see what's going on here. They were so excited because they didn't know how the coaches were going to approach this, and they didn't know what the outcome was going to be. That is what makes this game so fun. It's not just like the flash plays. It's, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, that's a really fun situation, and you're going to learn something, because I guarantee you Mike McDonald feels like he's got a good idea of how to approach this game. I guarantee you Sean McVay feels like he's got a good idea of how to approach this game, and every single player involved. There's a lot of, like, one of the things you and I have talked about, that was, we started to pick up on Mike McDonald's draft profile, IQ. Like, people don't think, Byron Murphy graduated early from college with a degree. Like there was Christian Haynes is a guy that has I think he has a master's. Like there's a lot of these guys that are smart guys. And now you get Devin Witherspoon, like all these guys that are heady players with a heady coach. And you just get to throw them out there and see how this puzzle solves. I think it's going to be so fun, man.
That's always why I fell in love with the NFL versus some of the other sports. I've never found the other sports have gotten, like, I love baseball for other reasons, and I grew up loving the NBA, and hockey is obviously a huge deal in Canada, but the NFL always captured me because of things like that. In the NBA, I could tell you the two teams that are going to be in the finals, or not in the finals, but the final 6 or whatever before the season starts. And I don't really care about the X's and O's of the game as much, but football always has just captured me. There's so many different details. There's so many, and that's where, again, like, that's where I found so many of these offseason matter of fact takes when we don't know. So perplexing. And that's why when we actually get into these matchups and we start talking about it, that's what's so fun about this. I don't know what's going to happen. And that's why if anyone saw my tweets yesterday, they make me sound like the most boring person of all time. But I'm like, this is just the first matchup. Let's not overreact. There's going to be a second one in Seattle in 4 weeks. But, like, it doesn't mean I'm not giddy for this game. But I'm worried that there's going to be, if, like, the Seahawks lose by like 10 points, I'm worried going to be, oh, we're frauds. And, like, I can't live with that. It would take a pretty extreme situation for me to go to that place. But it's just, there's so many little things. I mean, when you put the minds of McVay and McDonald there, it's just like, you can get me talking all day about this.
I think it's more the other side. I think the Seahawks are going to win this game, and I think they're going to win it. I think they're going to win it with some comfort, and I think the people are going to, like, jump all over the team, which is going to be awesome and fun, and we will lean all the way into that. But in my mind, that will have, like, very little bearing on whether I think that they're going to win the second matchup or the third matchup. Like, these two teams are so well matched, and the coaching is so good. You know, we'll have fun with that if that's the outcome. But I completely agree with you. Like, these two teams are going to be on a collision course all year long. I saw your eyes, your eyebrows raise a little bit. How are you feeling about this game?
I think it's going to be a fourth quarter game. I think it's going to be really close. It's going to come down to who can close this out. And I think it's going to be so much fun to see Darnold operate in this kind of game. This is one of the bigger games he's had in the regular season in his career. He had that great game against Green Bay last year. I think it's going to be a game like that, where it just felt like that Green Bay Minnesota game was such a big deal. And that was so big for Minnesota, so big for him. But I don't know. I think, like, my gut says, like, if it's a fourth quarter game, I probably lean to the guys that have been there a lot more. Like, what Stafford can do in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's, how do you doubt Mike McDonald right now? Like, how do you doubt that guy? Like, if I had to pick, like, gun to my head, I think the odds are probably pretty straight on, like, dead on. Like, they're saying it's more likely than not the Rams win. That's probably where my head is at.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's a certainty. I agree with, like, the 2-point spread. I think that's about right.
I think it's like 3 to 3.5 at this point.
I'm guessing the public would go with the Rams. That makes sense.
Yeah. I think that's totally fair, and that's where I started the week as well. Not necessarily favoring the Rams, but just feeling like it was a toss-up. And there's a lot of reasons that's kind of changed over the week. But one piece of this, Jeff, that I think baggage has so much to do with why people, at least Seahawks fans, are not more confident in this game. I think a lot of people believe and are looking forward to and think the Seahawks can win. But if Sam Darnold was any quarterback without the baggage,
exactly,
people would feel differently. If they hadn't had so many experiences with Sean McVay winning games against the Seahawks, I think they'd feel differently. If they had seen, the Seahawks run game actually do what they did last week more often, I think people would feel differently. And so I think there's a lot of things that aren't about the actual, like the actual guys on the field that are factoring in there. And I think Sam Darnold, if you look at it, Jeff, every single time he's had an opportunity to face plant this year, It hasn't happened. People point to literally 2 plays where the ball came out of his hand against the 49ers when he got hit by Nick Bosa, and then the interception off the helmet against Tampa Bay. And they're like, okay, he's turned the ball over in 2 critical moments. Those are 2 plays out of 1,000 at this point, or whatever. It's been 500. And you look at what he did, the Commanders game. I know that there's Commanders, but Sunday Night Football game. And there was that comment ahead of time of you can't lose to Sam Darnold on Sunday Night Football. He goes 17 for 17 to start that game. The Arizona game, highlight game, shows up. The Tampa Bay game before that final play, they needed every bit of what he could provide. He was every bit as good as Baker Mayfield on that day. So I think if you knew that Sam Darnold was going to come in here and play a great game and that nobody could cover JSN and that Rashid, I think people would feel a little bit differently about this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of the criticism of some of those Darnold moments have been kind of odd to me. Like the Tampa game, he scores, does a 99-yard drive after the defense is doing nothing, scores 35 points. He shouldn't have even been in that situation. He should have got the ball to the ground, but the guy was carrying the team with a 0 from the defense. The San Francisco game, if Riq Woolen just does his job, they win the game, or they're tied at that point, and they'd probably kick a field goal to win the game in the red zone. And it's a team game. I know it's easy to blame the quarterback. And I thought his worst play of the season was that Houston play down in the goal line, where he was clearly dead on arrival. He spins out, and I'm like, how is this still in your system? I know you were really triggered by that play, but I thought it was very telling. The next play after that was that 40-yard shot right down the field, down the left side, and he just throws a dime. I think if Darnold's the guy that everyone thought would crumble, I don't think that's his response to that. I thought last week even some people turned on him. Some of those were kind of fluky. They get loosey-goosey at times when they have leads, but I haven't seen the guy crumble or go into his shell. And that's really when he said, I saw Ghost, or everyone saw the end of the year in Detroit last year. That's what I'd be worried about if we'd seen moments of that. I haven't seen that. I think he's responded in all those spots. Even after the San Francisco game, he comes out and plays an amazing first drive to start that Pittsburgh game on the road. He's responded in almost every spot. So I know everyone in the back of their mind, and look, I can't say I'm not victim of this either, has wondered, is the bottom going to fall out on this guy? Is the old Darnold going to come back? Look, it's human nature to have that thought. And this is a big spot for him. He hasn't performed particularly well in these giant spots. So I get it. But I think at some point you got to say it's been 2 years of this now. He looks like, but I think you're right. If it wasn't Darnold, if it wasn't McVay, and I think we were talking to some guys this week, and they brought up some other things. They crumbled in big spots last year when they were challenged. They played that Green Bay game, and that one broke a lot of us. The Buffalo game, they looked out of their league. That first Detroit game last year, their defense was horrendous. That was a different team. Let's be real. They were a developmental team at that point, and they've changed a lot of their personnel. It's year 2. But from my understanding, that's still in the minds of a lot of people. Is this going to happen? Again, every time I've wanted to believe, they've let me down. And it's been a number of years of this. The Geno year, they trade for Leonard Williams. They're about to play Baltimore. It's oh, this team might be something. And then Baltimore just absolutely, but let's be real. If I could spend an hour talking about how fraudulent that 2023 team was, but it's just been years of the Tampa Bay Germany game. Okay, we finally got something here. And they shit the bed again. So it's been years of this. So there's a lot of things going on in Seahawks heads. This team just feels different though. I don't know if it's the young players. I don't know if it's DeMarcus Lawrence. I don't know if it's the veteran guys. I have not felt that. There's not been a moment where they felt out of their league. There's not been a moment. They haven't played a great team yet, but they've answered every time. Tampa at that time was one of the best teams in the league when they played them. They were toe-to-toe with them. They should have won that game. San Francisco
won the Super Bowl that year, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even when they played them this year, they should have won that game too, had they had their defense out there. But even the fact that I was crushing Pritchett and Okada for that game, the fact those guys have developed into that says so much about where this team's going and the development and the coaching. What Anthony Bradford's done in the last 2 weeks, it's been. I don't think you can say what happened last year carries into this year. We'll see if I'm completely wrong, But this feels like a totally different set of equations.
Yeah. I've got a question I'm going to ask you in just a second about Riq Woolen. Before I do that, did something fun. Someone started this. Cindy, listener, started this yesterday. She asked if there's a way to do super chats where she could send it via Venmo, so get all the money instead of 30% of it going to Google. And super chats, however they come, are great. And so she sent a super chat. It was awesome. And I told people that if they want to use Venmo to send super chats in, they can, and just leave their super chat via a message, a comment on their Venmo. So it's venmo.com/Brian-Nemhauser. You can find it in the link tree on any of my social profiles. And we got a bunch more. So I'm going to read these real quick. Derek Gilbert had a super chat, says, thanks for all the great Hawks coverage. Let's beat the Rams. Well, Derek, thank you, man. Really appreciate it. Jackson Powell, who is a aspiring young journalist in his own right, he also had a super chat. And of course, the login. Oh my God, the login went away. So hold on 1 second. This was all set to do easily, but because the world is full of bad actors, we need to log in 75 times. All right, back to it. Carrie Lee says, been watching the Seahawks since the beginning. Best era is now because of your coverage. Thanks, man. It says new Seahawks legends are being made, and you're one of them. Wow, that is very nice of you. So Jackson Powell, who I said before, aspiring journalist himself. Hey, Brian, I think the key difference will be an established run game, which they've struggled to do this year. What are your needs on this game to ultimately see the Seahawks win? Thanks for everything you do. Jeff, what do you think? What do you think that your one or two keys are for the Seahawks to win this game?
I do think they need to run the football, because if you can just let Jared Verse and Braden Fisk and those guys just kind of pass rush on you and get the obvious passing downs, it's not the ideal way to play. We saw last year, those guys took over the game, and their pressure rates have gone down. But either the play action game or the run game, one of those two needs to be super effective to make those guys off balance. We've seen teams run on them in the past. I don't think it's been as strong this year. I think they've defended the run much better with Poona Ford, and those guys have made more of a difference than I was hoping. And I think on defense, I think you got to make Matt Stafford uncomfortable. I think you got to move him off the spot. When they moved him off the spot last year, he would just have to throw the ball away. He doesn't. And if he gives you an interception, you got to get it. This guy gets away with so many turnover-worthy plays. I don't know what it is. They drop the ball. Last year, watching those Arizona game and the San Francisco game at the end of the year, it felt like he threw 8 interceptions that were all dropped. And then this year, I think he's got 2 interceptions, and he's been much better but his turnover-worthy play is higher than Darnold's. And if he gives you something, you got to take advantage, because he's so good. He's playing. Yeah. I think he's the MVP of the league right now. And I was someone who was very skeptical about him going into the year. And this is a game where they're going to need to either disrupt them. I think turnovers will be a huge deal, because he gives them up. He will take shots. And I think Riq Woolen, this is a really important game for him, for me. The Shanahan tree, those guys, they like to attack him. They like to try to attack him with details. Kyle went after him that first game with Pearsall. That won the game. That play down the sideline. Last year, Woolen couldn't cover. I don't want to put this all on Woolen. Like, that's crazy. He couldn't cover Demarcus Robinson at the end of that game last year. I think this is a big game for him. He's been playing really well.
We're going to come back to that in a second. That's good stuff. Justin Camarda says, I can rarely listen live and unable to send a super chat. Thanks for all the great content. Go Hawks. Thank you, Justin. Tyler Zerker says, real Hawk Talk has made the past 5-ish seasons, most of which was just losing our minds, arguing over average to good teams, feel enjoyable. Thanks for the community you've created and the excellent daily content, Brian. Go Hawks. Well, that is awesome, Tyler. Thank you. Christopher Reed says, appreciate your work. What are your way too early thoughts on next year's draft? Christopher, come on, man. Knowing what you know about the team's needs, upcoming contract, what position might you favor for our first round pick? I don't know, Jeff. This feels like hard to even do. Do you have any off the cuff initial thoughts there?
No, I can't get there yet. Let's see how this year plays out.
Default to the trenches, more offensive line,
Well, if this is a game again where they can't rush the passer, and we've seen that in some of their losses where they've pressured but haven't been able to sack guys, and their D-line since that Jacksonville game, I think has been the most dominant group in the entire NFL. You think of the Jacksonville, Houston, Washington, Arizona, that defensive line group just looks like the baddest group in the league. And that's what the Rams are supposed to have over there.
Mm-hmm.
They've kind of petered out a little, but I'm not counting those guys out. There's so much talent there. And so the edge rush, I think, group is the biggest question. The cornerback might be a big question coming out of the season. But edge, if Maffe's a free agent, and it seemed like they came close to trading him, and I heard a crazy rumor going around this week that I can't verify, but it sounds like the Maffe trade was connected to a bigger trade. But
the Max Crosby thing?
Yeah. Again, I don't want to speculate. That might be bullshit, but it wouldn't. They tried to trade for Max Crosby in March or in February, so that would have made sense. But I think that's a position they're going to address in some way because Lawrence is older, Nwosu's older. He's got a $20 million cap number with no guaranteed money, but he's earning it. He might be on the team next year at that rate.
Nwosu's playing really. He is
I don't want to get rid of that.
Nobody talks about.
Yeah, like he made a play last week to split a double team on 3rd and short, and because the Seahawks made so many unreal plays, no one talked about that. That was unreal.
Yeah,
he is a badass man.
He's playing out of his mind, and yeah, I mean, I think edge and line, but I'll just say this: like you and I have been able to spend months on draft coverage the past few years because the Seahawks haven't been playing that late into the season, and I have my credentials for the Senior Bowl. I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to use them this year because I think the team's going to potentially still be playing at that point. So draft coverage is going to be a little different than it was, which is fine by me. Thank you all for the super chats over there on Venmo. Very, very nice of you. We'll get to the super chats here in a little bit. And then, Jeff, I've been teasing this. Let me just bring it up. So I feel like Riq Woolen has been the best cornerback on the field the last 2 weeks. Yeah. And I think he's been playing at a level that's better than any of the cornerbacks on the Seahawks have played the whole season. That includes Josh Jobe, who I think has played really, really well. And Devin Witherspoon has played really, really well. Well, now Josh Jobe's back. They're playing a team that likes to go heavy. Like they might not be able to do a lot of dime where all 4 guys are out there. Is there any hesitation for you at all that if they have just 3 out there, it'll be Eamon, Jobe, and Devin Witherspoon, and Woolen will be on the bench?
I don't know, but I would like to see Woolen out there.
That's where I'm at.
I think the way Woolen's played the last 2 weeks, and really since Mike's talked about how they've seen a change in his practice habits and they've seen a change in his consistency. Again, I think this is a really important game for him. This is a team and the tree really has gone after him. They think he's can be attacked with details and they can be attacked with double moves. And we saw him fail at the moment of truth last year where there's a ball that should have been intercepted. I think you got to see what he does against a team like this. I think if you're making an evaluation on him, and Jobe, I've liked how he's played, but I'd say like kind of the storybook kind of start to fade a little bit. And not that he's not playing great, but like the beginning of the year, he looked like he was the best corner on the team. And the team started to get after him a little bit, started with that Tampa game. And really he hasn't. And coming off a concussion, I'd be pretty disappointed if they're having I want to see Woolen in this game. I think that gives him the best chance to win. I
think he is the best matchup with Davante Adams.
I
talked to him about that this week about, he said, I've gone up against him every year in my career. And I was like, I haven't gone back to look at that, but that's what he says. So I'll just take his word for it. And Davante Adams is a guy that can get off the press as well or better than almost any receiver in football. Smart, talented, like he's been everything that they wanted him to be. And I think the best matchup for him is Riq Woolen. So I want Woolen out there. That's one of these coaching decisions that I'm going to be kind of watching and seeing how it turns out. And it's a good problem to have, so to speak, but I don't know that it's an easy one to like. Josh Jobe has not played poorly, and I don't think it's easy to say, okay, we're going to take you off the field. I definitely don't think you're taking Witherspoon or even Worry off the field. So I don't know, man. That to me is a big decision in this game.
It is. And Davante kind of schooled Jobe a couple times in that Jets game last year. That was way too uncomfortable. That was one of my least favorite, maybe my least favorite game of the year last year. But there was just times he had some switch releases and just releases off the line where it just looked like he was toying with them. That stuck in my brain a little bit. I don't think the coaches will get there, But yeah, Job's had a really good year. Like he shouldn't be benched or anything like that. But I think if you're going strength on strength, I think Woolen's just sealing what he's done the last few weeks. And you can always mix and match them, but I think Witherspoon on Puka is a really good matchup. I think those two battled in the past. I think that gives them two really good corners to go up against those receivers.
Yeah, it definitely does. All right, let's make a few picks here, and we will take a look at what we have on the Sleeper app today. So let's go and check out this game between the Seahawks and the Rams. Here we go. And these are passing yards. Well, that's a free one.
We're not going to take free ones at the top.
Yeah, we're not going to take the free ones. That's not fun. Rashid Shaheed, 33.5 passing yards, receiving yards. What do you think about that one?
I like that one. I think if Horton's out, I think they're going to try to take. They were using him on more short yardage stuff and more of like a Percy Harvin kind of player last week. I don't know if that was to draw them in. I don't know if that was to show some stuff on film. I think they're going to hit one deep shot to him at some point in the next. Could be this game. I think if this is a game you're going to challenge them, I think this would be a great. I'm going over.
Okay, that's fine. It's interesting. We'll take that. Like
that could go either way.
Last week, it was JSN and then Cooper Kupp, and no one else had more than 5 yards receiving. So it's
but they only passed 12 times last week.
Yeah, they only passed 12 times. That's the big thing. Sam Darnold, he's going to have 2 passing touchdowns or fewer.
That's a tough pick.
Yeah, we've got Blake Corum, 27.5 rushing yards. I'm going to go less on that. Yeah?
Yeah,
I just don't like teams' ability to rush against the Seahawks, although they have given up some yards the last couple weeks. AJ Barner, Tory Horton, well, definitely he's not going to get a touchdown. Yeah. Ernest Jones, 7.5 tackles. That's a big number.
That's a big number. I'd be so.
Let's look at so Kenneth Walker, they got 44.5 rushing yards, and Charbonnet 32.5. I'm more on one of those. Which one do we want to go more on?
Kind of like Charbonnet.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I think that one of the things the Rams are good at is outside the tackle.
Yeah.
Run defense. They are not as good inside. And so like Daniel Jeremiah, really, really good. One thing he got kind of wrong in his preview with Brock and Salk was saying like attack the edges, don't go the middle. Numbers say the exact opposite. So that would probably give Charbonnet a little bit of a better chance.
That's especially if Olu can do what he was doing on the ground last week, and he's more powerful than Sundell is. I think that plays into Charbonnet's game.
I'm taking more on JSN every week. I don't care what the number is. 97.5 receiving yards. He's going
rolling.
I mean, that's like 20 yards under his average. Come on.
Yeah.
So I think that's a pretty good set of picks. And for folks that haven't already, now is a great time to download the Sleeper app, get all your fantasy football, all of your NBA, all of your other great stuff on the Sleeper app. And if you use promo code HAWKS, you will get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. And Jeff, man, a week from today, we're going to be in Nashville, and we are going to be hosting a party like at a VIP lounge on Saturday night. I don't know if there's tickets still left. They released some more. This QR code that I'm putting up there, people can go to try to get the last of the tickets. You also have the link in the description of the video. You're going to be there. I'm going to be there. Evan's going to be there. Josh, Dana, Derek. It's going to be a lot of fun, man. We're going to do a show there. We're going to hang out. You get a free drink with your ticket. Plus you get to hang out with the crew. So it should be a good time, man.
I'm really excited. It's obviously this game is taking up a lot of excitement, but like I've been waiting for this Nashville thing. It feels like for a year, and now we got a live event. The game might be the least exciting part of it, but
I know.
It's so hard to go like the Rams game to like the bottom of the barrel Titans. I don't know how McDonald's going to get those guys up for that game, but the couple days in Nashville, I get there Friday morning. I cannot wait.
We're going to be talking about that. Like, if the Seahawks do win this game, as we hope that they do, it's going to be such a party. And it's also going to be like, oh my God, do not give this away. Like, do not then go and lose to the Titans.
It's such a bad football team. I don't know if you've watched them at all this year. They stink.
Yeah, I've watched them more than I'd like to have watched them. And by the way, they were right there with the Rams for a lot of that game.
They were.
What's the thing that when you look at the Rams, because I'm going to say something that kind of goes against everything I've said so far, and it's just a question on my mind. I look at the Rams and I'm like, this is a really, really good team. And then I look at their last 3 games, which is where I think a lot of people have gotten super excited about them. And they beat the Jags team, who I think we just all don't think that highly of.
No.
They beat the Saints team, and then they beat the 49ers. And the 49ers, is as much as they've like had a good season, that's not an impressive win at this point of the year. So what makes you so confident in the Rams being really good?
I think it's the combination of McVay and Stafford. I think Sean McVay, I think you said on Real Hawk Talk, I was one who was kind of like, he's a front runner. He was only able to win when they had the best roster. Once they lost that, but then the last couple of years, once the roster got a lot worse and he started to develop, and he seemed to kind of have like the second version of him. He's just really impressed me. They seem to really get the most out of their players. They're schematically so smart. They're adjusting. They've done things a little bit differently than the tree he started out at. He's done some New England stuff. Now he's going with a lot of heavy looks. I just have a lot of respect for him. And they've punched up, like when they've played Philadelphia the last year in the playoffs, they were the closest. They did it again this year. They should have won that game. They looked like the best team in the league those first 3 quarters. We haven't seen them at that level really since that game.
Mm-hmm.
But I have the same take and then Stafford, when Stafford's playing like this and he's this confident, he's a really hard guy to stop. Even like 2012, like Stafford was able to throw the ball on them against Titus Young. But Stafford's just a really hard guy. He's so accurate and he's so smart, and he can just make throws that no one else can make. And I just thought the back injury might slow him down, and last year his age might slow him down, but he's been playing at such a high level. And then you give that front. And the thing that scares me, I think, is just on paper, their defense looked pretty weak this year outside of that front line.
Mm-hmm.
And you talked about it. Like, I saw you and Brett Coleman get so giddy about their nickel player, Quinton Lake. And like guys like that, Chris Shula has done a really good job with that defense. Yeah. And on paper, that looked like a pretty weak defense. I think the area they are weak is at the corner spot, but like Nate Landman and Quinton Lake and some of these guys have played really good football. So they just look like a complete team with not a lot of weaknesses. Emmanuel Forbes is probably the biggest weakness at corner, but I was hoping they'd be a little weaker defensively. I was hoping that's like maybe they had some injuries and the age would show, but really they haven't had a lot of injuries. They're a really complete roster. They don't have a ton of blue chip. It's really just Puka, Verse, and Stafford, but they're just really well coached, and teams like that are really hard to beat.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those are all really, really great points. Let's get to the super chats here before we wrap up. Smokehawk says the public has bet 75% on the Hawks, according to Pat McAfee the other day. I don't know how that could be if the line's moving the other direction. That doesn't sound right.
Yeah, that sounds off to me.
It would not be the first time Pat McAfee is peddling false information. Ransom Cornwall, wouldn't be a Seahawks Saturday without this show. Well, thanks, man. I'm glad that glad we could do it. Always great when we get Jeff on here. And then we've got the generosity of detail-oriented Bobby giving away 20 Hawk Blogger memberships, I should say. And Ransom's giving away 5. So that's 25 free Hawk Blogger memberships between the two guys. If you get one of these free memberships, consider paying it forward. This is a giving community. It's one of the things we do. I've got gifts planned and stored for charity coming up for the My Cause, My Cleats in a few weeks. And I'll have some stuff for you guys this week from Simply Seattle as well, starting later this week, or next week, I should say, on that. So really, really appreciate the generosity there. And then Nicholas Conte Christos says, I wish for perfect officiating. Playing in LA has some questionable calls in the past. Obvious missed PI on DJ Dallas, etc., etc.
Oh, I forgot about that. There might be one worse,
issue, man.
There might be one worse than that. We were playing them a couple years ago. I think it was 23, where Devin Witherspoon and Puka Nacua were running the same route, and Puka fell. And they called PI on Witherspoon in the end zone. And they gave him a first. They should have stopped him. They gave him a 1st and goal there. That call was abysmal. If you actually go watch the route, Witherspoon has nothing to do with it. He just runs into him and falls. I feel like every time we play them down there, there's a horrendous call. So I think Brian's right. I think there's no way we're escaping that. I just feel like that's how it's going to go.
Yep.
But the DJ Dallas one, I've tried to break that 2021 season out of my mind. Like now watching Russ go on Cameo and the week he gets benched, just putting out videos.
Yeah.
Like, Russ, please retire, buddy. Like, I can't watch you anymore. It's too hard. Yeah. Like, I'm trying to forget about that 2021 season as much as I can. So let's not bring up the DJ Dallas thing.
Yeah. Last thing I'll kind of say there, Jeff. We just got another 5 free Hawk Blogger memberships given away by Jacob Moon. Thank you, Jacob. Appreciate you, man. I love rooting for underdogs, man. I love rooting for people that other people have written off, and there's so much of this so much of that in this game. You've got Sam Darnold for sure. That's the obvious. I think Cooper Kupp is part of that as well. He was discarded because everyone thought he was cooked. You've got Ernest Jones. I'm going to put Anthony Bradford on that list. Like this is a huge game for him. I mean, jokes aside, it's a huge game. If he is the flaw that everybody thinks he is, he will be part of why they lose this game. They will exploit him. They have all the talent along that line to attack a weak spot on the offensive line. And if they're able to do that, that's going to be something that the Seahawks are going to have to figure out, because that's going to come back. If he does not play that way, if he plays well, it'd be a huge, huge story in this game that no one's going to want to talk about, but I certainly will. So yeah, there's a few of those stories in this game. I think Riq Woolen is certainly another one of those stories where, to your point, he has been the reason they've lost some of these games against rivals, and can he be the reason that they win? So I just there's a lot of those. I would love to have some of those guys be the reason that they win this game.
Those are all great call-outs. What I want to see the most is just see the D-line just keep rolling. Mm-hmm. Like if these D-line just come and just beat the crap out of Stafford, and Stafford's just unable to get comfortable, I think that would excite me more than anything. Seeing what I think's been the best position group since that Jags game in the league, and to see if they can go out against a team like this and just take over, I think that's so big for not just this game, but for Super Bowl aspirations. Yeah. And Brian, you've talked about in the past, and it's something I've always stuck with me, is you needed one great unit to win the Super Bowl. You need some unit that's better. Seahawks offensive line in 2005, they should have won the Super Bowl. The Legion of Boom defense, like they had so much of that. If you can see this defensive line play at the level they've been playing against some of the mid teams, I'm the one saying, like, let's keep our perspective. It's one game. If those guys take over, and it's the reason, I think everyone should lose their minds.
Yeah. We
haven't had a defensive line like that since the Cortez Kennedy days, probably.
Let's have a reason to lose our minds in a good way. That would be a lot of fun. Tomorrow afternoon, 1:00 Pacific time, we will get kickoff of these two teams, and one way or another, we're gonna have a lot to talk about after this game. Jeff, man, thank you for joining as always, and I will see you in a week, man. Less than a week. Can't wait.
I hope we're celebrating a win, but if not, we're gonna definitely beat the Titans.
Yes, we will. We'll drown our sorrows, or we'll celebrate our victories one way or another. All right, that is Jeff Simmons, the man, the myth. Follow him at Real Jeff Simmons, folks. I'm gonna head out to the airport where my flight is still on, even though there's like literally tornado warnings down in LA because of how bad the weather is. Wish me and everyone else flying luck that we can get there safely and be there for this game tomorrow. I'd be very bummed if we can't be there for this game. It's going to be a really amazing experience. All right. Thanks to everybody who has been with us today and all week. There's literally been millions of you tuning in to this content this month, which is just staggering. And one last thing, I will read a review of the day that showed up on Apple Podcasts that just made me really happy. And let's pick this one. This is from Burgalicious 41. It says, I'm hooked. I can't get enough of Brian M. Hauser and all things Hawk Blogger. Hawk Blogger mornings and Real Hawk Talk are informative, entertaining, and they connect me to so many local and national personalities and insight concerning my Hawks. Brian is real, genuine, passionate, smart, and I almost always agree with his takes. I don't know if that's a good thing, man. He works in so many great stats and advocates for the Hawks in so many great ways. This podcast is my sanity for the ups and downs of the Seahawks roller coaster. I can't recommend this show enough. Wow. Well, I'm glad I picked that one. What a great review. Really, really appreciate it. Appreciate all of you. Have a great rest of your Saturday. Prepare yourself for Sunday. We're going to battle, and let's get this one. Let's get this one and have some fun Sunday afternoon. All right. Until then, I'm Brian M. Hauser. This has been an episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care.